Hello everyone, my name's Duncan Baldwin. I'm Deputy Director of Policy at ASCL. I'm going to talk to you about the 6into7 project, which is part of our open data project. And that's all about how we can encourage schools to work together and to share data to understand their schools and their learners better, and to learn things through the process of collaboration that you can't learn just by working in your school on your own. Our project's been running now for some time. We've used the project to look at a number of things, for example, on attendance, where we've collected attendance data across schools, and we've been able to learn new things that schools haven't been able to learn on their own. There's more of that information on the website that you can look into later, but now let's focus on the 6into7 part of this. As part of this project, we were looking at how we might look at modern languages, actually, from primary school to secondary school. The experience is that children have a diverse experience with MFL in their primary schools. Then they go off to a range of secondary schools. They may be studying a language that's the same or different, but we felt that quite a lot of their prior learning on MFL was at risk of being lost in the process of transfer. So as part of our open data project, we were looking at how we could support the learning of youngsters as they move from year 6 to year 7, and to support the secondary school so that they could understand that information better. So we were ready to go with that, and then lo and behold, COVID-19 struck, and that led to all sorts of questions and problems and issues with transition. So the DfE announced, for example, that Key Stage 2 tests would be scrapped. Teacher assessment wouldn't happen either. So any form of statutory testing wouldn't take place. And whatever your view of those statutory tests are at Key Stage 2, nevertheless, we know that secondary schools do make quite a bit of use of them. And they can be useful just to get schools with a sort of general understanding of pupils' prior attainment. It would also mean, for example, that the question level analysis system that the DfE produced based on individual questions wasn't available either. So the real risk here is that very little or potentially no information about pupils' attainment could be passed on or would be passed on from primary schools to secondary schools, and that of course is a real problem. It's at its worst, we think, for those children who may be disadvantaged as well. So knowledge of what disadvantaged pupils in particular could do, what their strengths were in English and maths in particular, may be in danger of being lost. So we've very quickly developed our 6into7 project to look much more widely at modern language, much more widely than modern languages, and to concentrate on English and maths. We've worked with a group of teachers, primary school and secondary school teachers who teach year 6 in primary schools and teachers in year 7, and asked two questions really. If you were a year 6 teacher and you have a child in year 6 and you have the opportunity to say something very quickly to their year 7 teacher in their secondary school, what would you want to say? What would you want to cover? Bearing in mind you would have limited time and opportunity to do that. And we asked year 7 teachers the same question. What would you really most want to hear from a year 6 teacher if you could? Now, year 6 teachers want to say lots of things about their students. They want to give them the best possible start in their primary schools. Year 7 teachers want to know sort of just enough information, so to let them start to plan and to get them a sort of general sense of how well students were, what their attainment was in English, aspects of English and in maths. So we've worked extensively and very rapidly with those teachers, trying to get some sort of consensus between the year 6 and year 7 teachers to say what's the sort of minimal amount of information that you would both want to say and to receive and to hear. And what you're looking at now is an overview of where we've ended up. We've got some simple statements. For example, in maths, we've got a statement about whether pupils sort of know their times tables or not. A very simple assessment system. So we're asking the primary school teacher to say here whether a student is sort of secure in their times tables, as far as a sort of year 6 pupil would be, or not secure yet, or whether it's not possible to record any information for various reasons. And we're also flagging up the opportunity to say if a student is high ability in the whole area of maths, whole area of speaking, and so on. Also on this screen, we've just got the opportunity to flag up a student where we think there's another a conversation that's worth having. We haven't specified the reason. Could be a reason where if a child, for example, is already engaged in a local drama school, so they're very strong aspects of speaking, and that would be a conversation that would be worth having. Or if a child's got a particular learning need, well, there are some issues around that child. We haven't specified the reason, but you can see that there's an alert indicator where we think another conversation would be necessary. We think that's quite a quick and speedy thing for a primary school teacher to be able to do, and it shouldn't take sort of more than a couple of minutes for a teacher to complete that record about each student. So that gets completed by primary school about their students. And then through the Open Data project, there's a matching process that will go on based on pupils' UPN and name and feeder school and so on. And through that process, with no work really required by the secondary school, the secondary school would then be able to collect all of those assessments in the same sort of format from multiple schools there. So you'd be able to see what teachers are saying across a range of primary schools. There's the same assessments there, the 1, the 2, the 0, or the 3. You can see that some pupils have got the alert flag there as well. And in that way, you get a very quick picture, but hopefully a very useful picture of what the students are. We're not trying to replace sort of statutory assessment here. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to model a very quick conversation between primary school teacher and secondary school teacher in limited time, on the basis that there's a real risk that no other information will flow if we don't do something about it. So how do you get involved, and what do you do? Well, you can find out a lot more about how all of this works. We have a website to support that. The URL is opendataproject.org.uk. That website's available now and is available to access. So the first thing to do is to go to that website and to register on there, and we'd ask that you register using your school head teacher email address. That just makes it easier for us to validate. The portal is available now, so you can register and get online, and then primary schools shortly be able to get involved and start entering those assessments on the system, those professional judgments. And then on the 15th of June, secondary schools will then be able to match those students and begin to see which students have had assessments, and work with the feeder primary schools accordingly. What we really need everybody to do is to start spreading the word about that, to let everybody know that that's available. And of course, the more schools that sort of sign up to that, the more then the better it will be, and the more pupils we can help through the transition process. Our guiding principle about all of this, as I said, is not to replace statutory assessment or SATs or anything like that. It's designed to support children's transition, and this line at the bottom here is very much how we've expressed it. This is all about one professional to another for the benefit of the child. It's to model that conversation that might happen if we put our year 6 and year 7 teachers together very quickly to say, what do you most want to know about that child? So we really hope that you'll sign up to that, and you'll find more details on the website.